downloadedcontent.com. Torrents. Lightning fast enlightenment.
Until it gets to Led Zeppelin. And it's like, if you play Stairway to Heaven backwards, this is actually what it says, you know. And it's like some Hail Satan and all this good shit. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, I never, you know, so I'm scared. Now I'm scared, you know. And at the end of the video, they, go ahead.
So of course, that was the whole purpose, right?
Yeah, it was to scare you. So at the end of the video, they give me the sales pitch. You know, you're either going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell. And I was like, I don't want to go to hell. That place sounds like it sucks, you know. Who wants to do that, you know? So I go to church the next morning and I'm like, still scared. And I'm like, and my hair is down to my knees at this point, by the way. So I'm like in church and I'm like, I'm going to hell. I'm fucking going to hell. You know, God's going to kill me, you know, because I was born, I had original sin. I don't know, some shit that Adam and Eve did just fucked me up and I'm going to hell, you know. So, right? So the preacher says, you know, many on that day will say unto me, Lord, Lord, have we not called and prophesied in your name? And I will say, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. I never knew you. And I was so trembled. And so they called for an altar call. You know, come down here in front of everybody, you know, and show your humble, submission to what we're saying. Bow down before us, you know. Now in non-Catholic denominations, they say that's a show of vanity, really. But they still do it, you know. Come down here and show that you're really humble, you know, in front of everybody. So I did, you know, I was scared out of my mind. And so I did what the preacher said. And I went down there to the altar and I bowed down. And, you know, I prayed. And I prayed a sincere prayer. I was like, God, you know, I know I'm a sinner. And I do not.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was, you know, and I genuinely was. I really thought about, you know, I had a spiritual moment. So I'm not saying that all that stuff is useless. It's useful to bring you to terms with your own frailty. And so I had that moment and I was like, God, you know, I know I'm a douchebag and, you know, can you please forgive me for all that stuff because I really have been a douchebag. And I got up and I felt great. I felt like I was reborn, right? I really did have this experience where I felt like everything that I put down there on that altar, it had nothing to do with the preacher. It had nothing to do with the walls of that church. It was me and what I conceptualized as God having an honest moment together, which is, if there's anything that anybody can get from anything I say, that's it. You being naked in front of God, without the glamour, without the pomp of your ego, you just being honest with God. Talk to God like it's your dad or your mom or whoever your best friend is, because that is what God wants. And so I had that moment where I was like, God, forgive me. I was a douche. You know, I shouldn't have done this, and that.
Okay. I mean, and I get that. And I think at that point in your life, it probably was a grand transition for you.
Sure.
But why does it have to be outside of you?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. And see, that was the thing that I didn't understand at the time. It took me years to get, but that was an internal thing. It wasn't outside of myself, because ultimately, who was I talking to?
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was talking to myself. Well, after I got up and I felt great, I felt like I'd had this religious experience, a spiritual experience. And, you know, church is dismissed and I'm riding home back to my hometown with, my sibling that brought me there. The first thing that he said, you know, I felt great and I was smiling, I was happy. And he said, how you feel? I was like, I feel great. You know, I feel like I'm forgiven for everything that I've ever done. And he said, so when are you going to cut your hair?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was the first thing I heard. When are you going to cut your hair? And I looked at him, I was confused, you know, and I said, what do you mean? He goes, you know why you have your hair that long? It's because you're rebelling against society. And then I realized that organized religion is about conformity. It's not about liberation, it's about conformity. But they have to bait the hook with freedom.
downloadedcontent.com. Torrents. Lightning fast enlightenment.